Hello, everybody. Is it on?
Yes. Yeah, it's on.
I've been asked to contribute tonight in regards to the relationship between what happened 60 years ago in 1965 and last August. So that's a rather big ask, big question, because it's 60 years ago, and is there indeed any impact from 1965 on what, in relation to what happened in August? In the 15 minutes I have, I would like to argue, yes, there is, both in terms of the political consciousness of the Indonesian ruling class and its political elite, and also in relation to the political consciousness of the mass of the population, its middle class, its intelligentsia and academia. I think first, very briefly, need to set the context for what happened in 1965, when the military led by General Suharto took power and established a new order which lasts for 32 years. I think the key context here is that from the 1920s, then independence proclaimed in 1945, independence won in 1950, up until 1965, the Indonesian nation was characterized by a struggle among its population for what kind of future Indonesia would have. If you read a history textbook for high school in Indonesia today, you'll see a chapter on how in the 50s, or section on how in the 50s and 60s, society was riddled with this irrational competition between isms. Sometimes they use the word ism, socialism, communism, Islamism, this ism, that ism. And of course it's true that during that period, from the 1920s, 1945, 1950, and then openly and publicly in a very national way, from 1950 until 1965, yes, there was enormous competition, conflict, debate, polemic, ideologically. Should Indonesia be communist? Should it be socialist? Should it be social democratic? Should it be Islamist? Should it be some kind of special sort of Indonesianist society? This was obviously a very normal phenomenon. After decades of struggle, and between 1945 and 1950, 200,000 Indonesians killed fighting the Dutch, everyone, of course, has a vision for what they want for their country, newly independent. People are passionate about the future, passionate about what kind of future they want for Indonesia. The isms, that's a way of denigrating the idea that you have your belief and concepts for what kind of country you want. And that conflict, that competition and conflict and polemic and debate became sharper and sharper. And between 1959, 1960 and 1965, the conflict saw an enormous growth in support for a left-wing vision of the future. Just imagine, the number of people aged 18 and over in Indonesia was around 50 million in 1965. According to researchers like Donald Hindley, who wrote the book Communist Party of Indonesia, from I think Cornell or one of the universities over there, plus all the other data that we can see, probably 20 to 25 million Indonesians joined Communist Party or Communist Party affiliated organizations, or the left wing of the Nationalist Party or mass organizations connected to them, or the smaller parties like the Partai Indonesia and so on. That's half the adult population, not just voting, join. And it was in the context of the growth of that popular support for one variant or another of a left-wing perspective that 1965 took place. I don't want to discuss who did it, who organized what in the evening of 30th of September, but what happened in the immediate period after that was all debate about the character of Indonesia's future stopped. Some people, I think there's three major immediate consequences of 1965. First, people naturally and properly talk about tragedy kemanusiaan, the human tragedy. At least, 1 million people killed. According to General Sawaedi, he supervised the murder of 2 million people. That was his own deathbed confession, 2 million or 3 million. Hundreds of thousands in prison for 1 year or 2 years. 20,000 in prison for 14 years, all without trial. Several put on trial and executed. People executed, the 1 million, without trial. People taken away at night and executed at night secretly and buried in mass graves. It was a horrible tragedy kemanusiaan. The second thing that commentators and analysts will talk about was that it eliminated the left wing of Indonesian politics. The Communist Party was banned. And many people on the left wing of the Indonesian National Party were killed. Suratman, the Secretary General of the PNI, was tortured to death. And many other PNI people were also imprisoned and killed. So the left wing was gone. Books were banned. Pramudia Nantatu, all electoral writers were. Even Sukarno's speeches, just about to be published in Di Bawah Bendera Revolusi, 2 volumes, were banned. The Proclamator, banned. So that's the second thing. But I think the third thing was the deepest, and something that has huge consequences right up until today, and was reflected in the episodic character of what happened. What's the third thing? With the elimination of ideological competition, that is, the elimination of discussion, debate, competition, struggle, conflict over what kind of future, a certain habit, human habit, was eliminated. To sit down with your fellow countrymen and countrywomen to discuss the future of your country. That habit gone. No discussion from 1965 until today about what kind of Indonesia, what structures, what ideology will dominate, what set of values will dominate. Zero. That's the deepest impact. Yes, the institution of direct military rule for 20 or 25 years also embedded the use of violence in the political system. But really, the two biggest consequences are the result of the elimination of that third aspect, the habit, the need, the kebiasaan to debate and discuss what kind of future. Of course, in Australia, it's also gone, but for different reasons, In Indonesia, it's to do with primarily to do with the 1965 and the repression came after. There's many consequences of this, but I'll just focus on two because I think very relevant for what's happened. What happened in August and what's going to continue to happen. First, from the point of view of the ruling class and its professional politicians, or I use professional only in terms of full-time, not in terms of quality of political activity. Do you have to just imagine here, 1965 to 1998, 32 years. At that point in 1998, 32 years out of 48. New order. No discussion of anything. Rakyat masa mengambang, not floating mass. I don't know how many study history here, but you probably know that from the 1970 to 1990s, I think, orang di desa, people in the village and small town, not allowed to be a member of a political party. Not boleh. Only if you live in kabupaten. Not allowed. So you have this long period, 32 years. And then from 1998 until today, you have a period of open political party competition, but no political opposition. And you have to remember here, this is the key point. Why is there no political opposition? Not because it's banned, because it's not. It's because in Indonesian society, maybe all of you also, think Indonesia does not need an opposition. Otherwise, there would be one. It's not banned. There's no political prisoners in Indonesia today, except in Papua and people just arrested in August. There's no opposition. So first, let's discuss I'll just finish up with the 2 points. What's to do with the consciousness of the political? Can you imagine 32 years of authoritarian rule and 25 years of no opposition? That makes it into tulang sumsum apa? Into the marrow of your bone, impunitas. Impunitas. Actually, not really. I don't think so, really, because there's no mechanisms of accountability. But because there's no one in society trying to make them accountable. The elite, impunitas, flexingnya gila kan on just, they think they can do anything they want because for almost 80 years, they can do anything they want. But what about in the masyarakat, in the mass of the people? Also 60, 70 years of no experience in political organization. Almost zero. Yeah, under new order, you can become member of PDI, belum PDIP kan, just PDI or this or P3 or whatever. No political engagement involved in that. You have how many generations now? 1, 2, 3, 4 generations. No experience in political activity at all. The consequences is after 1998, people become more and more critical, and you get more and more like we had in August. Ledakan emosi, about anger, but no gagasan. No concept. Yes, I should make it clear here, actually over the last 25 years, human rights organizations, environmental organizations, women's organizations, many have criticisms of the government. Katanya mengkawal. But mengkawal, what's mengkawal in English? Yeah, to keep a watch on the government, but with no power. 25 years, keep a watch. 25 years, now they have another meeting, we'll keep a watch. We'll keep a watch on the government, but with what power? You think moral, exposing them to moral criticism, people who flex how much wealth they have, rubbing salt into the wounds of the poor, you think a moral appeal is going to have an effect on these people? If you have big, angry, confrontational demonstrations that happened in August, that will scare them. They were scared. They weren't scared that their house would be invaded. That wasn't the. They were scared investors won't come. If this happens again and again, they're scared investors won't come. They're not scared of the people overthrowing them. People aren't organized to overthrow them. It's 60 plus 20 years of no opposition, no political experience. I watched on YouTube the other day, yesterday I did before, Rocky Gurung. You know Rocky Gurung, pasti tahu kan? He said, dulu Indonesia banyak gagasan. Sekarang Indonesia miskin gagasan, kosong gagasan. Gagasan, concepts come from ideological debate. Analyzing society. Where should we go? What's the solutions? No, not this. This, not that way. This way. Don't go there. Go here. Tidak ada. Stop doing this. Yes. Stop being corrupt, please. Stop merusak the environment, please. Stop this. Stop that. But if you want to analyze it deeper, what this amounts to is what underpins all this criticism, mengkawal criticism, is acceptance of the status quo, but please get rid of the bad aspects. Because where do the bad aspects? The environmental destruction, the the absolute indifference to people being poor and getting poorer. Where does it come from? It doesn't just come from because the elite are bad people. It comes from something deeper. The structures that have evolved since 1965. Unless they are addressed, the structures of violence, the political structures, yes, but the economic structures, the social structures, and most important of all, as a result of 1965, the absence of engagement with the future. You know what? Actually, in my opinion, you know, we have a similar cultural problem in Australia, but from different origins. When I was, you know, I don't teach at the university anymore, but I stopped teaching a few years ago. When I would ask the students in the class, how do you imagine Australia in 50 years? You have blank face. The future tense is lost. The past tense, no one's interested in history or wants to learn from history. So everyone is simply living in a continuous present tense forever and ever and ever. No discussion of can it be different? If it can, how? Same in Indonesia, but in Indonesia it's a more desperate situation. You have now 270 million people. In 30 or 40 or 50 years, you have 400 million people. What are you going to do? Mengkawal for another 20 years. You know, I know it's easy for me to say. I'll be an old man watching things in my nice home somewhere, watching what happens. But you've got no choice. You can't just go on Mengkawal. You have to analyze the roots of the problem and face up to the reality. So one way to think about facing up the reality. Now with the not just August, but for a long time now, everyone knows politicians itu busuk. They're the whole elite. The whole elite is busuk. That's what the masyarakat says. Flexing, whether it's, whatever politician says this ridiculous thing, outrageous thing. So if the whole politician elite is busuk, if they're not going to rule, who is? If not them, who? You want them to change? They're not going to change. So if they're not going to change, who is going to replace them? That's the key thing. I mean, same here actually. It's a key thing everywhere. But in Indonesia, it's urgent. Who is going to replace them? In my opinion as an outside observer, ya harus di antara kamu. No choice. You can sit and critic and mengkawal and just see the situation get worse, or you can think about what Sukarno said when he was facing the Dutch, mark forming, menyusun kekuatan. Because without that, you can't do nothing. So I think.